You have the ring. And I see your Schwartz is as big as mine. Now let's see how well you handle it.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes, and I don't know, there's a weird thing going on. We've known about Keanu Reeves doing BRZRKR. It's going to be written by Matt Kindt. Recently, one of my personal favorite artists came onto the project, Ron Garney. I'm even more excited for it, but I guess they're crowdfunding some aspects of the books as far as collections after the all 12 issues are out. And people are upset. They've had enough, Aaron Sparrow. They don't think Keanu Reeves and Boom should be crowdfunding this book. It's taking away some of the spotlight from other deserving projects. And like I said, here with me today is the High Sparrow himself to drop some shame on the comic book industry. How you doing, Aaron Sparrow?
I am doing fantastic.
Well, I'm glad you could make it. I do want to say this before we get into all the weird details of this this weird hate for BRZRKR. If you're just joining the channel for the first time, if you've been coming around but haven't subscribed, today is the day to subscribe to Thinking Critical YouTube. Hit the bell for notifications. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoy this content. Let me know you want the High Sparrow, Aaron Sparrow, on the channel more. Give us a thumbs down if you don't, and we'll kick him to the curb if we can. Either way, we'd love to hear your feedback in the comments section. And also, Aaron does have a channel on YouTube that he's going to be using more in the future, and you'll have an opportunity to subscribe later in the video. All right, Aaron. I love Matt Kindt. He's one of my favorite writers. His run on X-O Manowar was very great until the end. His run on Ninja K was awesome. I love what he's doing with Bang. I believe he had Mind Managed before that. Ether, he's got a lot of great stuff. Ron Garney, comic book legend as far as art goes. One of my favorite artists. I'm reading his Incredible Hulk run right now. But people are upset. Like they shouldn't be able to crowdfund. What's going on here?
It's really interesting. And it put me, when I logged into Twitter and I saw the usual suspects complaining about Boom doing crowdfunding, crowdfunding this collection after the fact. I was reading just all this vitriol and all these people wringing their hands and Boom shouldn't do this and Boom has money and Keanu Reeves has money. Why are they doing this? And this is taking the spotlight away from other indie creators and it just I got sick to my stomach. And anybody who knows me knows that I have, let's just say, a colorful history with Boom Studios. I am not a big fan of theirs in general, not because of the content that they put out, because I think they are doing some really great things right now. As far as, some of the licenses they've got. Power Rangers is fantastic. They've got a fantastic editor that I have nothing but respect for on that book, Daphne Plebin. She is fantastic. She's one of the best in the industry, and she's putting together teams that are putting out great content. They're really making some strides in the industry, and they're staying strong. But I have a personal history with them that makes me less inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I am standing here being put in the unexpected position of defending them for crowdfunding. It's an unbelievable, these are unprecedented times.
It's weird. Do these same people come out of the woodwork to decry Scott Snyder crowdfunding his Noctera comic book, that's going to be out on Image Comics? Did they come out and did they shame Sean Gordon Murphy when he did his comic book, The Plot Holes?
Well, they did shame Sean Gordon Murphy, but for various other reasons. He's had a target on his back for a while from these Twitter lunatics. So Sean Gordon Murphy did get a lot of blowback. He got a lot of so-called friends telling him, during this pandemic, it's not a good look to crowdfund a book during these troubling times. The people who you surround yourself with, surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with people who actually have your back and who actually are invested in your success. A lot of these people in the industry, they are rooting for you to fail. And it's simply because they can't compete. It's really unfortunate. It's just a certain type of mindset. There's that, I believe it's a Morrissey song, "We hate it when our friends become successful." And that exactly describes some of these people. But you're real friends, and even just normies, we like to see success. We like to see people succeed. So when Sean Gordon Murphy launches a book, whether I'm buying it or not, I'm like, hey, that guy seems pretty cool. I like some of his work. I hope he does a great job. I hope he makes a ton of money. His making a ton of money does not impact me. It does not reflect upon me. It does not hurt my self-esteem. That guy is amazingly talented. He deserves to make a shit ton of money. When it comes to Scott Snyder went a little bit of a different route. Scott Snyder's had some trouble with the Whisper Network. They've been, talking trash about him behind closed doors. They've been, saying some pretty nasty things. He's kind of been targeted. So Scott Snyder had to kind of go a different route. First of all, he had to not use Indiegogo. He had to use the only approved crowdfunding service by the Twitter Code Authority, which is Kickstarter. Because, them alt-right Nazis use Indiegogo. So, you can only use Kickstarter. So he did that. And then he also hired the, we jokingly call me the High Sparrow of comics, but he hired an actual High Sparrow, the former gatekeeper of Kickstarter that was let go during this whole pandemic, Camilla Zhang. Or is it Zong? I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce it. Apologies if I got it wrong. But he hired her to basically manage his crowdfunding. And I think that was a very canny move. He hired part of this Whisper Network cabal to be part of his team to kind of give him some cover and, so that he didn't have to fight it out every day on Twitter about him doing a crowdfunded book. So I think that, he was a little canny in that move. But yeah, if not, he would definitely be taking the heat, much like Sean Gordon Murphy did. And now they've come for Boom Studios. Do
you think Keanu Reeves doesn't like Joe Glass? Is he trying to keep the gay man down in comic books by taking the spotlight from Joe Glass and his independent comic works?
Joe was one of the guys who was most vociferously railing against Boom in this situation. And that was one of his key talking points, was that it was taking focus away from indie creators, that, Boom entering this market was somehow hurting these other creators.
Matt Kindt not an indie creator?
Well, first of all, let me just say, everybody keeps saying, like, Boom has all this money. Oh, they've got a Netflix deal. They've got this. They've got that. And Boom has some money. Don't get me wrong.
They have a development deal.
They have development deals. And that's not the same as having a big sack of cash. I'm going to tell you.
It's not Miller World.
It's been 10 years since I worked at Boom. Ross Ritchie, the CEO of Boom, is not an extravagant man. That man, 10 years ago at least, he did not live high on the hog. He's not a rich man. He's
driving like a Ford Taurus.
Yeah, he doesn't have a fancy car. He doesn't have fancy clothes. He's not living in the lap of luxury, and he doesn't have a fountain in his front yard that's filled with crystal. He doesn't live that way, or at least he didn't. I can't really vouch for what's happened in the last 10 years. But his focus has always been on getting into Hollywood, getting movies made. That was what, Boom, well, the whole reason Boom was formed was so that they could develop properties that they could turn into movies and TV, long before that was the norm in the comic book industry. They were one of the first companies to have that idea and to start pursuing it. But he's not a rich man. They've made one movie, Two Guns. So it's not like they have all this Hollywood clout. They've got a couple of development deals here and there. They had one with Fox, then Fox got bought by Disney, and now they have one with Universal or Netflix, to produce whatever or not, depending on how Netflix and Universal's whims go. They have an office on Wilshire Boulevard, which is probably their biggest expense, because they have to keep up that kind of like Hollywood appearance. But they don't have a lot of money. They're paying their employees, not very much. Their talent that works on the books, there have been multiple stories about how they don't get paid that much. Because if you look at the numbers of issues that Boom sells on most titles, it's not that many. It's a few thousand copies. I think some of their top tier titles, even like Power Rangers, I think is somewhere in the 25 to 27,000 range. So that's, one of their big books. But a lot of the stuff that they do doesn't really, hit that level. So they're not raking it in. Also take into account, they are as affected by COVID as every other publisher. Their numbers are probably down from shops ordering books. They've had Diamond holding their money. I think that we all remember, all of us who watched the live stream with Steve Jeppy when he was talking about backing the comeback, and they had the different publishers on there. We all saw Ross get BTFO'd by Steve Jeppy. He got told to stay in his lane when he raised some questions about the way that Diamond was handling things. So, their money is being held by Diamond, and they're getting these like little structured payments from Diamond, just like everybody else. So
what is drawing any attention away from Joe Glass's next failed crowdfunding project. Those fail because of him, not because of the, whether it be Kickstarter or Indiegogo. Just because Keanu Reeves made a badass sci-fi action comic series with Matt Kindt and Ron Garney, that's not going to take a cent away from Joe Glass and a lot of these people complaining. I mean, that comic book did over, $350,000 in 24 hours, correct?
Yes, it did. And here's the way that they should be looking at it. This comic book is going to bring in Keanu Reeves fans who maybe have never stepped foot in a comic book store, have never bought a comic book, have never backed a crowdfunded comic book or project. It's going to bring in new people. So if anything, it's giving you a larger audience to market your book to. If you knew how to market, you would reach out to these people instead of just decrying the fact that, oh no, someone else is getting attention. Well, you weren't getting much attention anyway. So you should be glad the more people that get pulled into the pool, because then maybe they'll see what you're doing and maybe they'll come throw some dollars your way. If you can avoid insulting them, if you can avoid, making them hate you, if you can actually reach out and say, here's a cool project and present something that they like and engage with them in a positive way, maybe they'll throw a couple bucks your way. I know it's crazy. I know the idea of customer service, the comic book industry is not a customer service industry, as we hear people say all the time on Twitter, except that it is. Anytime you're asking somebody to give you their hard-earned money, you are in the customer service business, and you better come correct. Because
especially in crowdfunding, because people aren't only investing in the book or the IP or the idea, they are investing in the creative team. They're investing in you, whether or not they like you. They're investing in you, whether or not they think that you can actually fulfill. We've seen so many people not fulfill. People are going to be wary with their money. Hopefully this thing does come in on time and shows people that they can maybe trust the system a little bit. But that's one of the things, Ethan Van Sciver, Richard Meyer, Brian Polito, all these guys put in hours upon hours developing these relationships. So there's a trust and that people like them and they want to give them money. Nobody wants to give Joe Glass or Tess Fowler or Richard Pace money because they're douchebags.
You have to have a relationship with your audience. That is absolutely correct. Because normal people that aren't hateful and crying on Twitter and jealous of everybody who's more successful than they are, because those people have the temerity to put the absolute unmitigated gall to put in the work. The people that are jealous of them because they succeed. Normal, everyday people, who are not crazy lunatics on Twitter who hate everybody who's more successful than them. Your normal, everyday people like to see people succeed. We like underdog stories. We like to see somebody go out, put themselves out there and achieve. That's something that's very intrinsic to the human spirit, not the NPC spirit that we're seeing coming from Twitter all the time, where everyone is hateful and everyone is jealous and everyone is petty. But actual, regular human, everyday human beings love to see people succeed. And if they can be a part of it, they will. Because if I give money to a crowdfunded book, part of the whole reason that crowdfunding works is because you go out there and you say, hey, we want to make this neat thing. Do you want to help us? And people go, hell yeah, I want to help you. I'm excited about that thing. And when it succeeds, everybody has succeeded. Everybody who gave to it is a part of that success. And that's the thing that seems to escape them. They do these pie charts where they're showing you how, I promise you, I'm not going to make any money from this. And it's like, what are you doing? Of course you should be making money.
How are you going to make a sequel without money?
Yeah, you should be making as much money as possible. You should be able to pay some bills with the money that you made because you worked, you put in the work.
Family.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. I don't understand how these people think. And I think that's where Boom, I think this is a really smart move by Boom, and I applaud it because they have a responsibility to their investors, of which there are many. There's a lot of people that own a piece of that Boom pie. They've had a couple of times where they've had money troubles and they've had to sell off little bits of the company. And, those people are invested. Those people want a return on that investment. The people that work there would like to continue to be employed, I assume. I mean, I wanted out and got and was shown the door, but that was 10 years ago. A lot of things could have changed. I'm sure there's people there that would like to continue to be employed, that are happy with what they're doing, that are excited about the projects that they're working on and want them to continue. Boom has a responsibility to them. Boom has a responsibility to the creatives that they hire to produce the books, whether they are paying the best wages or not. The people are taking those wages, so clearly they are comfortable with working for those wages. Otherwise, they would walk away and say, this isn't worth it. So Boom has a responsibility to them. The people that Boom has no responsibility to are indie creators who Boom is supposedly robbing the spotlight from. Boom has no responsibility to Joe Glass. It has no responsibility to Richard Pace. Until those people work for them or are part of the Boom family, Boom has nothing to do with them and should rightfully not even consider their feelings on the matter.
Yeah, those dudes need to lay off the haterade and be glad that other people are having success, because they're giving you a blueprint for your own personal success. If you're a cool person and you have a cool product, people are going to want to support you. If you're Joe Glass, if you're Tess Fowler, they're not going to want to. They need to realize that maybe the problem isn't Keanu Reeves BRZRKR taking the spotlight, or Sean Gordon Murphy entering crowdfunding. Maybe it's that they're entering it with the wrong frame of mind. All right, Aaron, I feel bad for you. You are not the biggest fan of Ross Ritchie and Boom Studios. We talked about how they kind of screwed you over when you had a diagnosis hanging in the air and that you were going to need some time off because you thought you might be very sick at the time. We talked about that on the channel, but you've got some other stories. I don't want you to have to talk about Boom nicely for 20 minutes straight. You want to tell the viewers the story about the time that you went to the powers that be at Boom Studios and you went to the plate for your artists and said they deserve better wages.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I will. And again, this is 10 years ago. A lot could have changed. I've certainly changed in 10 years. I'm less full of piss and vinegar than when I was at Boom Studios. I fully accept that in some ways I was difficult to work with because I've always been a scrapper. And I didn't know, I've always fought for the things that I believed in, but I didn't always know the best way to go about it. Now that I'm older, I think that I approach things in a more diplomatic way. So let me preface that out there to say that I'm not perfect. Boom wasn't perfect. It wasn't a good fit. But here's the story. So, I had the artists who were coming to me, and they were saying like, "Hey, man, I can't get by on this wage. I can't. This is really rough. I'm getting paid this amount, and I turn in the pages, and then Disney gives all these corrections, and they come back, and then I'm expected to just like redraw whole pages with no other compensation. So I end up doing the same work like 3 or 4 times for a very low page rate, and it's killing me. I can't keep to the schedule. I'm not doing my best work. This is really difficult." And so I went to the powers that be, and I said, I'd like to either bump up their regular page rate or get them, some pay for revisions. And this also came on the heels of I'll tell the second part after I get through the page rate. And I was basically told, I was scoffed at and was told the only people that are dumb enough to think that they should be able to make a living drawing comics are comic book artists. That is a quote. And it was so demoralizing because I got into comics because I believed in the medium and I believed in the creativity and I believed in the power of the creatives and their passion. And I had so many people that were passionate to work on these projects. But that was what was being taken advantage of. Because they had a passion for these projects, at the time, Boom knew they could pay them nothing because they wanted to work on these properties so bad. They had a love of Disney, they had a love of Pixar, they had a love of the Muppets, and they just wanted to have their name in some way, attached to these things that they loved so much. So that was really demoralizing. The other thing was, I believe, I don't think you'd have a problem with me telling this story. I was working with an artist on Toy Story named Nate Watson. Jesse Blaze Snyder was the writer, Nate Watson was the artist. And at the time, I had pitched this idea of doing, the sketch covers. Let's print our books with the blank covers. When we go to cons, the artist can draw on them, and everybody gets a little chunk of money. So we did that. And Nate Watson was one of the artists we brought out. And I'm running around the con, meeting with artists, meeting with writers, trying to, get pitches and things like that. And I come back to the Boom table, and Nate says, "Hey, can we go to lunch today?" And I was like, "Yeah, we'll go grab some lunch. I'll take you out to lunch." So Nate and I leave, and we go over and we're sitting at the diner, and Nate goes, "Listen, over the course of this weekend, I've drawn about 200 covers." And I was like, "Wow, that is insane." He's like, "Yeah, I've done about 200 drawings on covers." And he goes, "For every one of those covers, Boom is charging $20 a cover. I'm not getting any of that. They are giving me nothing." He said, "I basically asked what my cut of that is, and I was told, 'Oh, well, we brought you out to the con. We paid to have you out, and we're putting you up in a hotel.'" He said, "I'm sleeping in a hotel room with 4 other dudes. I don't even have my own bed. I'm sharing a bed." And he goes, "And I could have spent this entire weekend catching up on the book that we are falling behind on because of how many revisions I have to do. Or I could have taken another cover or, done something else. And so I went back and I presented, I said, oh my God, Nate, I had no idea. I thought that the money was being, I thought that basically, you were doing quick sketches. I thought that you were, it was $10 for the book and then you were getting 10 is the way that I thought it was working. So I went back, I talked to Ross's administrative assistant, Kate, and we went to Ross and we said, this is really unfair. And the artists are kind of unhappy, and understandably so. And so the next convention, and I don't know how they handled it. I don't really remember how they handled it at that con, if they paid him out or if they, gave him a chunk. But at the next show, it was basically split up. So it's like, yeah, you do a quick sketch, the book costs $10 and you get $10. So the booth makes money and you make money. And artists were fine with that, because they started to really rake it in. They were making about $2,000 a day, and are feeling pretty good about it, just doing little quick marker sketches. That lasted one show because Boom looked at the amount of money that they were paying out artists at the end of the show and did not like how much was going out to them. So that's the story of the way that Boom was treating artists, 10 years ago while I was there.
There you go, folks. This is what people are driving Aaron Sparrow to. He is defending the company that refused to pay a decent wage to his employees that he went to bat for, and they did not heed his warning. Although it sounds like they hooked him up for one con and then refused after that. Aaron, thank you so much for joining us here today, talking about this weird blow up. So much haterade going out there in the Twitter spheres for Berserker. Keanu Reeves obviously making his debut in comic books. Matt Kindt, one of my personal favorite writers. Ron Garney, one of my very favorite artists of all time. Going to be a great project. Really wish I could back it. Wish I was in the States, but
Ron Garney is fantastic. I assume that in order to get Ron, I assume he's getting a decent wage on this. My hope is that with the Kickstarter money and all of the money that they've made on this project, that there's some bonuses for the creative team. Also wouldn't be bad if some of those bonuses trickled down to some of the artists that are working on some of the less popular projects that they're not crowdfunding and making a huge bunch of money on. But maybe, it'd be nice if they kind of spread that around a little bit because, the fact of the matter is comic creatives, they do work hard. The ones that care, the ones that are here because of the love of the industry and aren't just biding their time trying to get a Netflix deal. Though they really, really care about what they're working on. And it's a shame that a lot of times that gets taken advantage of. And like I said, this was 10 years ago that I was at Boom. Maybe things have changed. I hope they have. I would love it if the company was in a better place. I would love it if the executives were in a better, were more caring towards the people that work for them. And I would love to hear that everybody was doing great. We talk about this all the time, but we talk about a lot of things in the industry that we're critical of. But part of the reason that we're so critical is because we love this medium so much. We want this industry to survive. We want it to be viable, not only for the publishers, but for the people who create the things that we love.
Absolutely. All right, Aaron, I really appreciate it. And right now there should be an icon on the channel. You can go subscribe to Dapper Dragon Media, Aaron's YouTube channel. There should be more content on there now, or in the near future as he's doing some podcasts.